Anna froze, her fingers tightening around the slender stem of her wineglass. Her fiancé, Matthew, had just mockingly announced that he had no way to pay for dinner. He'd forgotten both his wallet and his bank card at home. She could hardly believe what she'd just heard. Soft music drifted through the cozy restaurant. Somewhere nearby, cutlery clinked quietly. Other guests dined around them. On the table between them, a nearly burned-down candle flickered, casting trembling reflections on the glasses. In front of Matthew sat a nearly empty plate with scraps of a luxurious steak, while he savored a glass of expensive wine. No one seemed to be paying them any attention, but Anna's cheeks burned with a sudden wave of shame and anger. She slowly set her glass of unfinished wine down on the spotless white tablecloth, forcing herself to stay composed. Her heart was pounding in her throat, but she made herself breathe evenly. Is he serious? Flashed through her mind. Just a minute ago, everything had been perfect, the soft candlelight, the aroma of fine dishes, Matthew's gentle voice telling a funny story. And now this, like a bucket of ice water poured over her head. Anna looked up at him. Her fiancé sat across from her, completely at ease, smug, even. A smirk played at the corners of his thin lips, and his eyes gleamed faintly, clearly enjoying her reaction. He spread his hands in mock helplessness. What can you do, darling? I forgot by accident, he drawled, still with that edge of mockery in his voice. But you're a modern woman, right? You can pay for yourself, can't you? Her insides went cold. Matthew was looking at her with open amusement, as if curious to see how she'd get herself out of this one. In an instant, all the doubts she'd been pushing away for months flashed before her. Just yesterday, she'd been looking at Matthew through rose-colored glasses, blind to his flaws. Now they'd shattered. Sitting in front of her wasn't a caring fiancé, but a stranger, smug, and capable of cruelty. Did I ever really know him? She thought bitterly. They'd been dating for almost a year, and 3 months ago Matthew had proposed. Back then, he'd seemed so attentive and loving, flowers, sweet gestures, the perfect gentleman. For the past month, wedding planning had been in full swing, and only recently had Anna started noticing troubling signs. Matthew liked to show off, ordering expensive champagne in public, boasting to friends about the lavish honeymoon they'd take. Her father had once quietly pointed out that Matthew seemed a little too obsessed with appearances, but she had brushed it off. That's just his style, she'd told herself. Tonight, he'd been playing the king, snapping his fingers for the waiter, giving loud orders. Anna had felt a little uncomfortable, but chalked it up to his wanting to impress her. He'd said he wanted to make her feel like royalty, and had ordered the most expensive dishes and the finest aged wine. She'd been flattered. She'd spent time carefully picking out her dress and doing her hair for the evening, wanting to look perfect for him. All day she'd floated on a cloud of happiness, proudly admiring the engagement ring he'd given her. And now this. He'd brought her to an expensive restaurant just to stick her with the bill. Her nose stung with the threat of tears from humiliation and anger. But she wasn't about to let him see her break. Fine, if this was his true face, then so be it. We'll play it your way, she decided, feeling her initial shock harden into resolve. Anna adjusted the little spoon beside her plate, just to keep her hands busy. Then, steadying her voice, she spoke evenly. Of course, darling. It's no big deal. Matthew narrowed his eyes, clearly not expecting such a calm reaction. She could tell he'd been hoping for outrage, tears, at least some reproach. But she sat poised, even managing a small smile. Such a shame it turned out this way, she added, meeting his gaze. I'll take care of the bill. That's my girl, he chuckled, raising his half-full glass. He swirled it lazily, as if offering a toast. To independent brides. Anna felt her cheeks flush again, but she just gave a short nod and looked away. Inside, she was boiling, but now she knew exactly what to do. Pushing her chair back gently, she stood. I'll be right back, she said softly. Matthew waved a hand dismissively. Go ahead, darling. Anna moved between tables, holding herself tall. Her chest ached with disappointment, both in Matthew and in herself. That morning, she'd still loved this man, wearing his ring with pride. Now, hurt pulsed where her love had been. At the host's stand, she straightened her back. Behind it stood a man in a sharp suit, the restaurant's manager, and an old acquaintance of her family. When he saw her, he smiled politely. "Good evening, Miss Anderson. How can I help you?" "Hi, James," she said quietly. "May I have the check, please? And do tell the chef everything was wonderful." The manager nodded knowingly, and a minute later handed her the printed bill. Anna glanced at the total, her eyes nearly widened. Matthew had gone all out, multiple top-priced dishes, premium wine. The sum was steep, but she didn't care. She reached for her wallet, but James stopped her with a gentle gesture. "Please, don't worry. We'll put it on the house. Your father would be upset if he knew we charged you in his restaurant." Anna shook her head, feeling a flicker of embarrassment. "Thank you, but I'd like to pay as any regular guest would. It's important to me." The manager gave her a look of respect and didn't argue further. She handed him her card, and while the payment went through, she glanced back at their table. Matthew was still sitting there, drumming his fingers idly on the tablecloth, scanning the room. He didn't seem the least bit concerned about her absence, confident she was quietly taking care of his little game. The payment terminal beeped, and James handed her the receipt. Anna thanked him and walked back with steady steps. Stopping beside Matthew, she saw him glance up at her. "All set?" he asked casually. "Yes," she replied evenly. "I paid for everything. We can go now." She picked up her jacket and purse from the neighboring chair. Matthew, raising his brows, stood too. "You're not mad at me, are you?" he asked with a little smile. "You're awfully quiet." Anna looked at this handsome, well-dressed man and wondered where her caring fiancé had gone, or had he always been like this, and she'd just now seen it. Tears threatened, but she willed them back. "You know, Matthew," she said slowly, keeping her voice steady, "there's something I need to tell you. But not here." Without looking back, she headed for the exit first, certain he would follow. Matthew must have sensed trouble. The smugness began to fade from his face as he hurried after her, trying to catch her eyes. In the spacious restaurant lobby, near the coat check, there was no one else around. Their footsteps echoed under the high ceiling, and the wall sconces cast long shadows along the walls. Anna stopped and turned to face him. Her heart was no longer racing. On the contrary, a strange calm had settled over her, as if everything happening was exactly how it should be. "So, what did you want to tell me?" Matthew asked, forcing a smile. There was a note of unease in his voice. Anna held his gaze in silence for a moment. She wasn't going to hide anything anymore. A sharp ache rippled in her chest. Not long ago, she'd been moved to tears when Matthew slipped an engagement ring onto her finger and promised to make her the happiest woman alive. Now, everything was different. In one smooth motion, she slipped the delicate ring from her finger, the one she had worn with pride for months, and held it out to him in her palm. "I wanted to say that we're done." Matthew paled, staring between the ring and her face. "What? What are you talking about?" "This is a joke, right?" he stammered, trying to smile, but it came out as a grimace. "This is no joke," Anna said quietly. "I saw the truth about you tonight, or rather, I finally allowed myself to see it." Matthew blinked several times, trying to process her words. Then he made an effort to compose himself. "This is about me asking you to pay the bill?" "Come on, that's ridiculous," he said, his voice unsure. "We're practically family. What does it matter who pays?" Anna shook her head sadly. "It does matter. It's not about the money, it's about your attitude. You did it on purpose, didn't you? To test me, or to humiliate me." Her fiancé finally shook off his initial shock. Straightening his back, he tried to regain his haughty look. "Oh, don't be absurd," he snapped. "Humiliate you? What are you even talking about?" It was just an awkward situation. I really did forget my wallet. And why do you immediately assume the worst about me? Maybe you were the one testing me, dragging me to an expensive restaurant to see if I could afford it. He tried to sound outraged, but his voice wavered. Anna just looked at him with quiet pity. Don't bother, she said wearily. No need to invent excuses. I saw it in your face, you were enjoying my reaction. That's far too cruel for someone who claims to love me. Matthew bit his lip and switched tactics again, now speaking gently, almost pleading. Anna, sweetheart, I'm sorry. It was a stupid joke, I admit it. I just thought you were independent, that you wouldn't mind. You're right, it was a bad call. Let's just forget about it like a bad dream. The wedding's coming up. Anna glanced at the ring lying in his palm. No, Matthew. There's not going to be a wedding. If you truly loved me, something like this wouldn't even cross your mind. The conclusion is obvious. His eyes flared with anger. What's the big deal? He blurted, clenching the ring in his fist. All I did was ask you to cover the bill. It's hardly a tragedy. You're from a wealthy family. That amount means nothing to you. Maybe I just wanted to see if you weren't after my money. Anna shook her head in disbelief. She hadn't heard such a tangle of contradictions in one breath in a long time. It was nothing more than a pathetic attempt to justify himself and shift the blame onto her. After your money? And why would I care about that when you're the one who brought me here? My parents own this restaurant, in case you're interested, she said, her tone turning icy. You wanted to test me? Well, consider the test over. I hope you like the result. Matthew froze, staring at her. His face flushed, whether from anger or embarrassment, she couldn't tell. What did you say? This is your restaurant? My parents, she corrected coldly. I just never thought it was worth mentioning before. Matthew had always known she came for money, but it had never occurred to him that her family actually owned a restaurant. Anna had been raised in a wealthy home but was grateful to her parents for keeping her grounded. She'd never felt the need to flaunt her background. She wanted to be valued for who she was, not for what she had. That's why Matthew had known so little about the family business. He opened his mouth but couldn't form any words. The silence stretched. Anna realized there was nothing more to say. Goodbye, Matthew, she said quietly. She turned and headed for the door. In the doorway, she nearly bumped into a startled waitress rushing toward her, but the young woman quickly stepped aside to let her pass. Matthew didn't follow. He was probably still standing there, stunned, realizing his own foolish stunt had just cost him his fiancée. The cool evening air rushed into her lungs like a gulp of freedom. Streetlights were already glowing outside, and a few cars passed along the road. Anna took a few steps down the sidewalk and felt her knees weaken. She leaned against the wrought iron fence at the restaurant's entrance, drawing in a deep breath of night air. Tears threatened to spill, but she quickly wiped them away, unwilling to ruin her makeup. Miss Anderson, came a soft male voice beside her. She started and turned. By the main entrance stood James, the manager, looking at her with concern. Are you all right? He asked quietly. Anna forced a small smile. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. He held out a silk scarf. You left this on the back of your chair. And let me remind you, your father asked me to let him know if anything ever went wrong. Anna nodded in understanding. Of course her father had already guessed. The manager must have called him. Her parents were probably worried. She felt a rush of gratitude toward them. They had always been her rock, and she knew they wouldn't leave her alone in this moment. Don't worry, I'm going to see them now, she said, taking the scarf and draping it over her shoulders. James nodded respectfully and stepped back, giving her space. Anna took another deep breath and looked up at the dark sky. It hurt to let go of her illusions. Letting go always hurt, but along with the pain came relief. Better to find out now, before the wedding. Much worse would have been to discover it later, when it was too late to change anything. She imagined herself married to a man willing to humiliate her for fun, No, better to be alone than live like that. She knew she deserved better and would never again allow anyone to treat her this way. Under the cold light of the street lamp, Anna pulled out her phone and found her mother's number. She needed to tell her there would be no wedding, at least not with this groom. Her heart ached, but deep inside, there was a quiet sense of relief. This was for the best. She had made the right choice, no matter how hard it was. As she pressed the call button, she felt a heavy weight lift from her shoulders. The conversation ahead with her family wouldn't be easy. There would be tears, emotions, but she knew they'd understand and stand by her. And after that, peace would come. Someday, maybe even soon, she would find real happiness with someone who truly valued and respected her. Adjusting the scarf around her shoulders, Anna cast one last glance at the dark sky and walked toward the parking lot. The people waiting for her there were the ones who truly loved her. That thought warmed her heart. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to share it with your friends and family. Like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and let us know in the comments where you're reading from. We'd love to hear.